Emma was a young woman in her late 20s, and life had never been easy for her. She was a single mother raising her little daughter, Lily, all on her own. Every morning started with the same struggle. Emma would wake up before the sun, prepare Lily's breakfast, pack a small lunch for her, and then rush to get herself ready for work. She worked as an assistant in a big company, a job that demanded time, focus, and discipline. But her life was anything but calm and organized. The alarm clock rang at 5:30, and Emma quickly pulled herself out of bed. Lily was still sleeping, her tiny arms wrapped around a soft teddy bear. For a few seconds, Emma stood there, watching. Her daughter's peaceful face. That innocent smile in sleep was Emma's only strength. "I have to do this for her," she whispered to herself. Money was always short. Rent, bills, food, school supplies, everything seemed to come at once. Emma worked hard, but the salary barely covered their needs. Some nights, she skipped her own meals just to make sure Lily had enough. Yet Emma never complained. She had learned to hide her pain behind a tired smile. That morning was different. The babysitter who usually looked after Lily suddenly called and said she couldn't come. Emma's heart sank. She had an important meeting at work, and being late was not an option. She looked at Lily, who had just woken up, and rubbed her sleepy eyes. "Mommy, where am I going today?" Lily asked softly. Emma froze for a moment. She didn't want to scare her daughter, but there was no one else she could call for help. She sat beside Lily on the bed, brushing her hair gently. "Sweetheart, today, you will come with Mommy," she said with a small smile. Lily's eyes lit up with excitement. For her it sounded like an adventure, but for Emma it felt like walking into danger. She knew her boss, Mr. Anderson, had a reputation. He was strict, cold, and never tolerated mistakes. Bringing a child to the office was against company rules. Emma's stomach tightened with fear, but she had no other choice. After a quick breakfast, Emma dressed Lily in her neatest little dress. She packed some crayons, a notebook, and Lily's favorite teddy bear in a small bag. "Be on your best behavior today, okay?" she whispered. Lily nodded eagerly, not understanding the weight of her mother's words. The bus ride to work felt longer than usual. Emma kept glancing at the time, her heart racing. Around her, other passengers noticed the tired young woman holding her daughter, close. Some smiled kindly, others looked away. Emma didn't care. Her mind was filled with worry about what would happen at the office. Finally, they reached the tall glass building where Emma worked. Lily's eyes widened as she looked up at the shining structure. "Wow, Mommy, is this a castle?" she asked. Emma forced a small laugh. "Yes, sweetheart, but remember, we have to be very quiet inside this castle." As they stepped into the lobby, Emma felt the heavy eyes of her co-workers on her. Whispers started immediately. Some people pitied her, others judged her. A woman at the reception raised her eyebrows but didn't say anything. Emma kept her head down, holding Lily's hand tightly as they walked toward the elevators. Inside the elevator, Emma's heart pounded louder. She imagined the possible outcomes. What if Mr. Anderson saw Lily? Would he shout? Would he fire her on the spot? She tried to shake off the thoughts, but fear sat heavily on her chest. Lily, unaware of the tension, hummed a little tune and looked at her reflection in the mirror. When they reached the office floor, Emma led Lily to her desk, tucked away in a corner. "Sit here, baby," she whispered, handing her crayons and notebook. "Draw something beautiful for Mommy." Lily smiled and started doodling happily. For a brief moment, Emma felt relief. Maybe, just maybe, the day would pass quietly. But deep down, she knew it was only a matter of time. Sooner or later, someone would notice, and once the CEO found out, everything could change. Emma sat at her desk, pretending to focus on her work, but her mind was restless. Every sound, every step in the hallway made her tense up. She loved her job, not because it paid well, but because it was the only stability she had. Losing it would mean losing the roof over their heads. She bit her lip and kept typing, her hands shaking slightly. Across the desk, Lily lifted her drawing, proudly. "Mommy, look," she said in a loud voice. Emma quickly shushed her, glancing nervously around. A few co-workers looked over and smirked. Emma's cheeks burned with embarrassment. She whispered softly, "Sweetheart, please keep your voice low, it's very important." The morning dragged on slowly. Emma tried to stay invisible, praying the CEO would stay busy in his office, but fate had its own plan. The door to the CEO's office opened, and Mr. Anderson stepped out. His tall figure and sharp eyes commanded silence wherever he walked. He spoke to a manager nearby, his deep voice echoing across the floor. Emma froze. She held her breath, silently begging that he wouldn't notice Lily sitting near her desk. But Lily, full of innocence, looked up from her drawing at the tall man in the suit. Her curious eyes followed him. She whispered to her teddy bear, "Is that the king of the castle?" Emma's heart nearly stopped. She knew the struggle of her life had just reached its most dangerous test. The office was always a quiet place in the morning, filled with the soft sound of keyboards and the clicking of heels on the polished floor. But today, something felt different. Emma's little daughter Lily sat at her desk, coloring happily, and that small presence had already started a storm of whispers. Emma could feel the eyes of her co-workers on her. They tried to look busy, but their voices carried across the room in low tones. "Why would she bring a child here?" one man muttered to another. "It's unprofessional," a woman replied, shaking her head. "Poor thing, she must have no one else to help her," another whispered softly with a hint of pity. Emma kept her eyes on the screen, typing as fast as she could, but her hands trembled. Her ears caught every word, and each one felt like a knife. She wished she could disappear. She wished she could give Lily a normal childhood without these struggles. Lily, however, was too young to notice the tension. She giggled softly as she colored a picture of a house with flowers and sunshine. Every now and then, she looked up at her mother with a proud smile. "Mommy, look, I made a garden," she whispered. Emma gave her a quick smile and nodded, but her eyes darted nervously toward the hallway. The whispers did not stop. A group of employees near the coffee machine kept glancing at Emma. "Do you think Mr. Anderson knows?" one asked. "If he finds out she's finished," another answered. "Honestly, I don't blame her," said a softer voice. "She's trying her best." Emma's chest tightened. She wanted to cry, but she swallowed her tears. She couldn't show weakness here. This office was not a place for sympathy. It was a place of rules, deadlines, and strict orders. And at the top of it all was Mr. Anderson, the CEO, a man who could end her career with just a single decision. The morning stretched on painfully. Emma kept her head low, answering emails, filing documents, and trying to hide the fact that Lily was there. But every little sound her daughter made felt louder than thunder in Emma's ears. The scratch of crayons, the soft hum of a song Lily sang under her breath, even the shuffle of her tiny shoes. It all felt dangerous. At one point, Lily dropped a crayon on the floor, and it rolled across the room. She got up to chase it, her small footsteps echoing. A few people chuckled quietly. Emma's face burned red. She rushed to her daughter's side and whispered, "Please sit down, sweetheart. Please don't make noise." Lily looked up at her. "Mother," confused. "Did I do something bad, Mommy?" she asked innocently. Emma shook her head quickly. "No, no, my love. You did nothing wrong. Just stay close to me, okay?" She hugged her daughter tightly, wishing she could shield her from the judgmental stares around them. By mid-morning, the whispers had turned into rumors. Some people were convinced Emma would be called into the CEO's office any minute. Others said she might get fired before the day ended. The tension in the room was thick, and Emma could feel it pressing against her chest like a heavy weight. Still, she forced herself to keep working. She had no other choice. She couldn't afford to lose this job. She prayed silently that Lily would stay quiet, that the day would pass without Mr. Anderson noticing. But fate seemed determined to test her. Just before lunch, Lily stood up again. She walked toward the large window, her small hands pressed against the glass. "Mommy, look at the city. It's so big," she said, her voice louder this time. Heads turned. People tried to hide their reactions, but Emma could feel the air shift. She rushed to her daughter and gently pulled her back. "Sweetheart, please, not so loud." she whispered urgently. Behind her, she heard someone chuckle and mutter, Here's going to be a disaster." Emma's heart pounded. She sat Lily down again and handed her another paper to draw on. "Here, baby, make me another beautiful picture," she said, forcing a smile. Lily nodded and began to draw again, her little face full of innocence. But Emma knew it was only a matter of time. The office was buzzing with whispers, and whispers had a way of reaching the top. Then, as if the universe wanted to prove her fears right, the door to the CEO's office opened once more. Mr. Anderson stepped out, tall and imposing, his eyes scanning the room. The whispers stopped instantly. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. Emma froze. Her heart felt like it had stopped beating. She kept her eyes on her computer screen, praying he wouldn't notice. But she could feel his presence moving slowly, closer and closer, and then Lily looked up from her drawing again. She tilted her head, curious. In her sweet, innocent voice, she whispered to her teddy bear, "That's the king of the castle. Mummy told me." The silence was broken. A few people gasped softly. Emma's face turned pale. The whispers had ended, but the real storm was only beginning. The air in the office became heavy the moment Mr. Anderson walked out of his office. He was tall, sharp-looking, and carried an authority that made everyone straighten in their chairs. His dark suit was perfectly pressed, his polished shoes clicked against the floor, and his serious expression reminded everyone why he was feared. No one dared to whisper now. The only sound was the soft hum of computers, but Emma's heart was beating so loud she was sure others could hear it. She kept her head down, pretending to type, though her fingers shook on the keyboard. Mr. Anderson's eyes scanned the room slowly, like a teacher inspecting a classroom. He noticed small details, papers out of place, a phone on a desk, even a coffee mug. Nothing escaped him, and then his gaze landed on something unusual, a child. At first he froze. A little girl sat in the corner, holding a crayon, her legs swinging gently under the desk. She was drawing with full focus, as if the entire office was her playground. For a second, Mr. Anderson's face showed something unusual, a flicker of surprise. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by his usual stern look. The employees exchanged nervous glances. Some held their breath. Everyone expected the storm. Emma felt his eyes on her. Slowly, she lifted her head, and their gazes met. Her throat went dry. She wanted to explain, to beg for forgiveness, but no words came out. She looked at Lily, who was still busy drawing, unaware of the powerful eyes watching her. "Emma," Mr. Anderson's deep voice broke the silence. It wasn't loud, but it carried weight enough to make her heart sink. "Yes, sir," Emma whispered, standing up quickly. Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself to stay steady. "Step into my office. Bring with you," he said firmly, his eyes flicking toward Lily. Gasps echoed quietly around the office. This was it. Everyone was sure Emma was finished. No one had ever dared to break company rules so boldly. Bringing a child into this professional environment was unthinkable. Emma bent down to her daughter. "Come on, sweetheart," she whispered, forcing a smile. Lily looked up at her with wide eyes. "Are we going to meet the king of the castle?" she asked softly. Emma swallowed hard. "Yes, baby. But remember, be very polite." Lily nodded, clutching her teddy bear as Emma took her tiny hand. Together they walked toward the CEO's office. The sound of their footsteps seemed louder than usual. Every pair of eyes followed them, filled with curiosity, pity, or silent judgment. Inside the office, Mr. Anderson closed the door behind them. The room was large, with tall windows showing the city skyline, and a massive desk that seemed to separate power from weakness. Emma stood there nervously, holding Lily's hand tighter than ever. "Explain," Mr. Anderson said simply, his voice cold, his arms crossed. Emma's mouth went dry. She wanted to defend herself, but her voice trembled. "Sir, I'm very sorry. My babysitter cancelled today. I didn't have anyone else to look after my daughter. I couldn't afford to miss work, so I had no choice." Her words came out fast, almost like she was pleading for mercy. Her eyes watered, but she quickly blinked, refusing to cry in front of him. Mr. Anderson said nothing at first. He studied her face, his expression unreadable, then his gaze shifted to Lily. The little girl stood silently, looking up at him with big, curious eyes. She hugged her teddy bear close but showed no fear. Instead, she smiled shyly. "Hello, Mr. King," she said in her innocent voice. For the first time, something changed in Mr. Anderson's face. His lips twitched slightly, almost like he was holding back a smile. But he quickly hid it, clearing his throat. "What's your name?" he asked, his tone softer than usual. "I'm Lily," she answered proudly. "And this is Teddy. He comes everywhere with me." Emma's eyes widened. She expected him to be angry, to shout, but instead he bent down slightly, lowering himself to Lily's level. It was something no one had ever seen him do, not even the managers who had worked with him for years. "What are you drawing, Lily?" he asked, glancing at the paper in her hand. "It's a garden," Lily said happily, "with flowers and a big house. Mommy says one day we'll have a house with a garden." Emma's cheeks burned with embarrassment. She wished Lily hadn't said that. It revealed too much, made their struggles too visible. She opened her mouth to apologize again, but Mr. Anderson lifted a hand, stopping her. He looked at Lily carefully, his eyes softening. For a moment, it seemed like he was lost in thought, as if the child reminded him of something from long ago, a memory perhaps. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Then he straightened up, his serious mask returning. He turned to Emma. "I should fire you for this," he said sternly. Emma's stomach dropped. Her worst fear was coming true, but before she could speak, Lily tugged on his sleeve. "Please don't be mad at Mommy. She works very hard," Lily said innocently. The room fell silent. Mr. Anderson looked at the little girl, and something in his expression cracked. For the first time in years, the cold CEO seemed human. The silence inside the office felt endless. Emma stood frozen, holding her daughter's hand tightly, waiting for the words that might destroy her job, her security, and everything she worked so hard for. Mr. Anderson's stern face showed no clear expression, but his eyes kept drifting back to Lily. Lily, however, was fearless. She looked at the CEO the same way she looked at her teddy bear, with curiosity and trust. She tilted her head and asked softly, "Why do you look so serious, mister?" Emma's heart nearly stopped. "Lily," she whispered, horrified. "Please be quiet." But to her surprise, Mr. Anderson didn't look angry. In fact, his lips curved slightly, the faintest trace of a smile. He crouched down again so that he was on Lily's level, something no one in the company could ever imagine him doing. "I look serious because I have a lot of work to do," he said slowly. His voice was still deep but softer, almost careful. "Do you like to work?" Lily thought for a moment. "No," she said honestly. "I like to draw and play." She held up her paper proudly. "See, this is my garden. One day I'll plant real flowers for Mommy." Emma felt her throat tighten. Her daughter's words, innocent and pure, revealed the dreams she kept hidden in her heart. She wanted a better life for Lily, a life where she didn't have to count every dollar, where her child didn't have to see her worry at night. Mr. Anderson studied the picture for a long moment. His eyes softened in a way Emma had never seen before. For a second he seemed lost, like the picture had pulled him back into a memory. "When I was your age," he said slowly, "I also wanted a garden. But we didn't have one. My mother worked all day just like your mommy." Emma blinked in shock. She had never heard Mr. Anderson speak about his personal life. No one had. He was always strict, distant, like a man made of stone. Yet here he was, telling a child about his childhood. Lily's eyes sparkled. "Your mommy worked hard too." Mr. Anderson nodded. "Yes, she raised me all by herself." Emma's breath caught. Suddenly she understood why he hadn't shouted at her the moment he saw Lily. Perhaps he saw a piece of his own past in this situation. For a moment the office didn't feel intimidating anymore. It felt human. Emma's fear eased just slightly, but she still stood quietly, unsure what to say. Lily, full of curiosity, continued her questions. "Did you have a teddy too?" she asked, holding up her stuffed bear. Mr. Anderson hesitated, then chuckled softly, a sound so rare that Emma almost didn't believe it. "Yes, a small one. I carried it everywhere until it fell apart. Lily giggled. Mine won't fall apart. I take care of him. The CEO nodded slowly, as if impressed. His gaze shifted back to Emma, and for the first time it wasn't cold or harsh, it was thoughtful. He could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the strength she forced every day, and the weight she carried silently. You didn't plan this, did you? He asked her quietly. Emma shook her head quickly. No, sir, the babysitter cancelled this morning. I had no one else to help. I know it was against the rules to bring her, but I couldn't miss work. I'm truly sorry. Her voice cracked slightly, and she looked down, ashamed. She expected him to say something cruel, but instead he was silent. He looked at her daughter again, then back at her. You remind me of my mother, he said finally. His tone was low, almost personal. She was just like you. Strong, determined, always putting me first, no matter how hard it was. Emma's eyes widened. No one in the company had ever seen this side of him. The man who always seemed untouchable, who never shared emotions, was suddenly opening a window into his past. Sir, Emma began softly, not sure how to respond. Mr. Anderson straightened and walked toward his desk. He placed his hands on the polished wood, staring at the city skyline through the window. For a long moment he didn't speak, and Emma wondered what he was thinking. Lily, breaking the silence, once more whispered, You're not scary like everyone says. Emma gasped. Lily, please. She was ready to apologize again, but to her astonishment, Mr. Anderson actually smiled. A real smile. Small, but real. Maybe I don't have to be, he said softly, almost to himself. Emma's heart pounded. She didn't know what this meant. Would he forgive her? Would he punish her later? The suspense was unbearable. Then Mr. Anderson turned back to them. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried a weight that Emma couldn't read. Go back to your desk for now, he said. We'll talk more later. Emma nodded quickly. Yes, sir, thank you. She held Lily's hand tightly and led her out of the office. As the door closed behind them, the entire staff stared, wide-eyed. No one could believe what they had just seen. The CEO, the man known for his icy heart, had spoken kindly to a child. Whispers immediately filled the office again. What just happened in there? Did he smile? Impossible. I've worked here 5 years, and I've never seen that man smile. Emma sat down at her desk, her heart still racing. She glanced at Lily, who happily returned to her coloring as if nothing unusual had happened. But Emma knew better. Something had shifted. Something she couldn't quite understand yet, and, though she was still afraid of what might come next, deep inside a spark of hope flickered for the very first time. The rest of the morning passed slowly, but the office no longer felt the same. Emma sat at her desk trying to focus on her work, yet her thoughts kept drifting back to what had just happened in Mr. Anderson's office. She had expected anger, punishment, maybe even the loss of her job. Instead, she had seen something she never imagined, a softer side of the man everyone feared. But Emma couldn't relax. The uncertainty still pressed on her chest. She knew the CEO wasn't done with her. The way he had said, "We'll talk more later," echoed in her mind like a warning. At noon, the intercom on her desk beeped. A voice from reception said, "Emma, Mr. Anderson wants to see you in his office, alone." Her stomach twisted. This was it. The real decision was coming. She looked at Lily, who was still coloring happily. "Sweetheart, stay right here. Don't move, okay?" Emma whispered. Lily nodded, hugging her teddy bear tightly. Emma took a deep breath and walked to the CEO's office. The eyes of her co-workers followed her every step. Some looked worried, some curious, and others almost certain she was walking toward her. Own dismissal. Inside, Mr. Anderson was standing by the window, hands in his pockets, staring at the tall buildings outside. He didn't turn around when she entered. The silence made Emma's heart pound louder. "You can sit," he said finally. Emma sat carefully on the chair across from his desk, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She waited, not daring to speak first. After a long pause, Mr. Anderson turned to face her. His expression was serious, but not as cold as before. "You know the rules of this company, Emma," he began. "No personal distractions, no children in the office. You broke that rule today." Emma lowered her head, shame burning in her chest. "I know, sir, I am truly sorry. It was an emergency and I had no other choice." He studied her carefully, his eyes sharp but thoughtful. "Do you realize how risky that was? One mistake could have distracted the whole floor. And yet," he paused, his voice softening, "you handled yourself with dignity. Even under all those whispers, you kept working." Emma blinked, surprised. She hadn't expected any acknowledgement of her effort. Mr. Anderson walked to his desk and sat down. For a moment he seemed lost in thought. Then, in a voice quieter than she had ever heard from him, he said, "I told your daughter something today, that my mother raised me alone. It's true." Emma looked up, startled. "She worked 2 jobs," he continued. "She woke up before dawn and returned late at night. She carried the same exhaustion I see in your face. People judged her. They whispered about her. But she never gave up." His voice grew distant, almost as if he was speaking to his younger self rather than to Emma. "I promised myself that I would succeed no matter what. I wanted to give her the life she deserved, but she never got to see this." He gestured around the office. "She passed away before I could show her what her sacrifices created." Emma's eyes filled with tears. She could feel the weight. Behind his words, the pain hidden in his strong voice. "I never talk about this," he admitted, his gaze lowering. "Not to my staff, not to anyone. But when I saw your daughter today, it was like looking into my own past. I saw myself in her, and I saw my mother in you." Emma pressed a hand to her chest. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Mr. Anderson replied firmly. "But understand this, your courage, your determination to keep going for her, it matters. More than you think." The room went quiet. Emma wiped a tear quickly, embarrassed. She had never expected to hear something so personal from the man who was known as heartless. Finally, she found her voice. "I just want to give Lily a better life," she said softly. "I don't care how tired I get. As long as she smiles, I'll keep going." Mr. Anderson nodded slowly. "That's exactly what my mother used to say." For a moment, their eyes met, and Emma realized something important. Beneath his hard exterior, the CEO wasn't heartless at all. He was someone who carried old scars, someone who understood struggle more than anyone else in the building. Then, his expression grew firm, again but not unkind. "You are not fired, Emma," he said clearly. Emma gasped, her relief so strong that she almost broke down right there. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. But," he added, holding up a hand, "things cannot stay the same. I will make changes. For you. For others like you." Emma looked at him in confusion. "What do you mean?" "You'll see," he said simply. His tone carried finality, but also a promise. Emma stood, her heart lighter than it had been in months. She bowed, her head slightly. "Thank you, sir, I won't forget this." As she left the office, she thought about everything he had shared. The strict, distant man she had feared was not just a boss. He was someone who had once been a child like Lily, someone who had been saved by the strength of a single mother. For the first time, Emma felt hope that maybe things would change, not only for her but for others like her too, but she had no idea just how big those changes were going to be. When Emma walked out of Mr. Anderson's office, her heart was still racing, but this time with relief instead of fear. She sat back at her desk, holding her daughter's hand tightly. Lily looked up and asked, "Mommy, is the king still mad?" Emma smiled faintly and shook her head. "No, sweetheart, he's not mad." But deep inside, Emma was confused. Mr. Anderson's words kept echoing in her mind. "Things cannot stay the same. I will make changes." What did he mean? What changes? The rest of the day was strange. People in the office couldn't stop whispering. They had seen Emma enter the CEO's office with her daughter, and they had seen her walk back out with her job still safe. Many of them had expected her to leave in tears, but instead, she looked lighter, hopeful. Did he really let her stay? Someone whispered. "I've never seen him so calm before," another replied. "Something is different, very different." Emma ignored the chatter. She focused on her work, determined not to give anyone a reason to doubt her. But every so often, her eyes drifted toward the CEO's office. The closed door felt like a mystery box, holding secrets she could not yet understand. By late afternoon, the unexpected happened. Mr. Anderson stepped out again, but this time his expression was not cold. It was serious, yes, but his eyes carried a new kind of energy. He walked to the center of the office floor where everyone could see him. "Everyone gather around," he said in his commanding voice. The employees exchanged shocked glances. The CEO never addressed the entire staff like this, not without notice. Slowly, cautiously, they formed a circle around him. Emma stood at the back, holding Lily close, unsure of what was coming. Mr. Anderson looked at each of them before he began to speak. "Today I was reminded of something I had forgotten, something important. Years ago I was a child raised by a single mother. She worked harder than anyone I've ever known, and yet she was judged, underestimated, and left without support. I see the same struggle in some of you today." The office was silent. No one had ever heard the CEO talk so personally. He continued, "This company has always demanded perfection, but perfection should not come at the cost of humanity. From this day forward, we will make changes. We will support those who carry responsibilities beyond these walls." The staff looked at one another, stunned. What was he saying? Mr. Anderson's gaze shifted to Emma for just a moment before returning to the group. "Effective immediately, we will introduce flexible working hours for parents. We will create a childcare support program within the company. No employee should have to choose between their child and their career." Gasps and murmurs filled the room. People couldn't believe it. This was the same CEO who had once been known for his strict rules and cold attitude. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She covered her mouth, overwhelmed. She never expected her desperate act of bringing Lily to work would spark something this big. Mr. Anderson raised a hand, and the room grew quiet again. "Let me be clear. This is not charity. This is respect. Respect for those who work hard, not only here but also at home. My mother taught me that strength is not measured only in business but in sacrifice. Today I honor her, and I honor those like her." For a moment the office was still. Then, slowly, people began to clap. At first it was soft and hesitant, but it grew louder and stronger until the entire office was filled with applause. Some even wiped away tears. Emma stood frozen, her heart overwhelmed with gratitude. Lily, not fully understanding, clapped her tiny hands happily. "Yay, the king is nice!" she shouted, making the staff laugh softly. Mr. Anderson's lips curved into a small smile, and for once he didn't hide it. He nodded slightly toward Emma, as if telling her without words that she had changed something inside him. When the meeting ended, people returned to their desks, still buzzing with excitement. Many glanced at Emma, but this time the looks weren't judgmental. They were kind, respectful. Some even smiled at her, and she smiled back with tears in her eyes. Later, as the day ended, Emma packed her things and held Lily's hand. On their way out, Mr. Anderson stopped them at the lobby. "Emma," he said firmly. She turned quickly. "Yes, sir?" "You did something brave today," he told her. "You reminded me of who I used to be. Don't ever think of yourself as less. You are stronger than most people here." Emma's eyes filled with tears again. "Thank you, sir. I'll never forget this." He nodded once, then looked down at Lily. "And you, young lady, keep drawing your gardens. One day you'll have one." Lily giggled. "I'll invite you to see it." For the first time, Mr. Anderson chuckled softly. "I'll hold you to that," he said before walking away. Emma stepped out of the building with her daughter, the evening sun shining over them. For the first time in a long time, she felt lighter. The struggle was still there, but now there was hope, real hope. As they walked toward the bus stop, Lily squeezed her mother's hand. "Mommy, today was like a fairy tale," she whispered. Emma smiled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Yes, sweetheart, and sometimes fairy tales happen in the most unexpected places."